What's up, everybody? Welcome to Lifting Keys with Key. This is a new thing that I'm doing every week where I answer your training, rehab, and injury questions to help you build a strong, fit physique without wrecking your joints. So I'm going to be doing these weekly, and this is where I'm going to be answering any questions that I get via DMs, questions that I see on different online forums, whether it's Facebook groups, Instagram, questions that I get in person from clients. And the reason I'm doing this is because so many people are dealing with the same issues, but they're getting different advice. And sometimes the advice is good. So I'm going to be sharing that. And oftentimes the advice is not the best because there's a lot of misconceptions that are still circulating around the fitness industry regarding how to train around different injuries or the best way to do things for different fitness results that you may be looking to achieve. So putting all of these questions together and answering them publicly allows you to make educated decisions in your fitness journey, in your health, especially when you are somebody who is dealing with various different aches, pains, or problems that limit you from working out, performing the way you want. So instead of answering these questions one-on-one, I'm going to be bringing these conversations here. So if you want to ask a question, you are going to send it to my email. I'm going to drop that in the comments. You're going to title it FAQ or question, just so it's in one central place. My email is kiani@keepitfit.com. Once again, I'm going to drop that in the comments. And a quick disclaimer before we go any further. This is not medical advice. I am a physical therapist, but I'm not your physical therapist. I am a strength coach, but I'm not your strength coach unless you are working with me. And a lot of training, rehab, and injury questions don't always have one size fits all answers. So if a question depends on the individual, if it needs more context, I'm going to ask you follow-up questions. I'm going to point you in the right direction just so you have some things to think about. And if you want to set up a consultation, you can do that by commenting consultation or sending me a DM with the word consultation. If you want your question answered on a future live, you're going to submit it to the email, and then that's going to keep everything in one place so that I can keep everything in one place so that I can easily access the questions so that we can do this on a weekly basis in an easy way that doesn't overwhelm me. So if you guys have any questions about that, drop it in the comments, but that's how we're going to run this. So let's get into it for today. We have 4 questions. First one is, why is a lunge so difficult to do? So this is a good question, but I want you guys to understand this is also a very vague question. And I always say the better question that you ask, the better answer you're going to get, and the better you're going to be able to go about the process to get to where you want to be. So why is the lunge so difficult and what to do to help build knee strength? So my first thing with this question is, what specific lunge variation are we talking about? There's so many different variations. You got reverse lunges, walking lunges, forward lunges, lateral lunges, curtsy lunges, all these other bullshit lunges you see on Instagram. There's so many different ones. And depending on your current knee strength or hip strength, certain lunges are going to be harder than others. Because if you think about what's happening in a lunge, you're bending your knee, you're having to be in a split stance position. So that's going to require knee control from your quads. It's also going to require you to have some hip mobility. So your glutes are going to be involved. It's going to require you to have coordination. This may be difficult for you if you already have balance problems. So depending on the lunge variation that you do, one may be harder than another. So typically when it comes to lunges, the order of difficulty from easiest to hardest is typically starting with a split squat. So not a Bulgarian with your foot on the bench, just a regular split squat, a reverse lunge, and then from a reverse lunge, you can progress to a forward lunge, and then to a forward lunge, you can progress to a walking lunge. Those are typically the progressions. And it's not like you're doing these things 1 week after the other. You really want to master each movement, load it up, get comfortable there so that your knee and just your lower body in general gets comfortable with that movement, because it's a lot different amount of stress on your knee with a reverse lunge than it is a forward lunge. And a lot of times you may not even notice, but especially if you're in like these group classes, you may not even notice that you're doing a lunge that's not meant for you, that you're not ready for. A lot of times people go to these classes and they have them doing walking lunges, forward lunges, and they can't even do a reverse lunge. That's just loading your knee up with a lot of force and a lot of stress that it's not ready for. And then you go home, your knee gets a little achy, and now you think all lunges are bad. It's not that lunges are bad. It's just that you were doing a lunge variation that you were not ready for. And this is why it's important to know what your capability is by going through a strength assessment. This is why every time you sign up with somebody, whether it's a coach, a trainer, whatever you want to call it, you want to make sure that they are assessing where you currently are. This is going to save you a lot of trouble in the future. Second part of this question is, what do you do to help build knee strength? So you build knee strength by finding a safe entry point into all lower body exercise variations. So your lower body variations just mean the type of movements that your legs do on a day-to-day basis. We all need to be able to squat, so getting out of the chair, getting out of cars. We need to be able to do a lunge or some type of split stance movement. That's gonna help with your balance. That's gonna help with you going up and down stairs, because we are not just moving through our day with 2 feet on the floor at the same time. So any split stance or lunge variation, you need to have in your program, regardless of if you have bad knees or not. Single leg movements, so step ups, single leg balance, single leg RDLs, and then you have your hinge patterns. A lot of times when people have bad knees, they gravitate towards hinge patterns because hinge patterns do not really load the knee as much as these more knee dominant or quad dominant movements. You need to have all of these. When people only focus on hinge patterns, their quads get very weak, and then what their knee can actually tolerate becomes a lot less over time, and then you run into this persistent cycle of pain. We don't want that. So you need these 4 things in: squats, lunges, single leg movements, and hinge patterns. So when I say these 4 things, it's not just for exercise. These are just categories. So for squats, a squat pattern could be a leg press. When you think about what a leg press is, it's literally just squatting in a reclined fashion, whether it's on an angle, whether it's fully flat, it's still the squat pattern. Goblet squats, barbell squats, single leg squats, any type of squat variation, you're gonna find the one that works for you. Typically, when you are trying to build up knee strength, you're gonna start with either a body weight squat to a box, or you're gonna start with some type of goblet squat, whether that's to a box or freestanding. And then you're gonna progress through your variations from goblet squat, front squat, or back squat. You could throw leg press in there. So you're just moving through these variations as your knee gets stronger. Same thing with lunge and split stance movements. You're not going to go in the gym and your knee hurts and you feel like you have bad knees and do a Bulgarian. That's not the best move. So you'll probably start with a reverse lunge. You'll probably start with a split squat, TRX squat. So the options are endless. Notice how I'm giving you different exercise variations. It may not be something that is going to work across the board for everybody, and this is why it's so important for people to, sorry, I'm turning off my walking pad. This is why it's so important for people to go through the process of figuring out what works for them. Then you have your hinges, so hip thrusts, RDLs, deadlifts. These are going to really help support the knee from the backside, but you want to make sure you're covering your entire lower body. And then you have like hip abduction, hip adduction, which may or may not be a necessity for you. And then that is just going to come down to determining exactly what weaknesses and imbalances you have. So it's not like everybody needs to be doing the same exact thing. It's more so choosing things that you need to do based on what you need. This is why I always harp on not following templated programs when you know you have an injury, because somebody with bad knees, if you have to take 2 people with bad knees, one person may be able to do barbell squats, walking lunges, sissy squats, and you may be only able to do a reverse lunge and a bodyweight squat. So we're all created differently. Yes, we all need different movement. I mean, the same movement patterns, but the type of movement pattern, the specific pattern, specific exercise you do is going to be different. And then once you find the specific variation or the specific exercise that you need to start with, then you build a plan around that, and then you progress over time. When I answered this question in the DMs, the woman said that she graduated from PT and she was doing these exercises, but now she lives a sedentary life. PT is not different from training. I don't know where this misconception came from. All physical therapy is working out in a way that fits your current capacity, whether it's your current pain tolerance, your current range of motion, your current strength levels, and then progressing from there. They are not two separate entities, right? Just because you graduate PT does not mean you do different exercises because now you graduated. Like, you don't fucking graduate. You don't graduate PT, you continue it for life. There needs to be no type of distinction between PT and training because it's literally all the same thing. So I say all that to say, once you find the exercises that work for you, that you were doing in PT, which should look like just a regular strength training program, you just continue those through life. You progress when you're ready, same way that you would progress if you didn't have an injury. So if you're somebody who has been dealing with knee pain or shoulder pain, and you're like, I've been in PT and I graduated, but I don't know how to progress from there, just comment consultation. We'll set that up and we can talk about what a program needs to look like for you, because at the end of the day, the goal is to improve, yes, your knee, but also improve your health so that you can do the things you want to do for a long period of time. When you start to focus on PT being different from working out, you end up limiting yourself, because at the end of the day, there's really no difference. Everybody needs to be moving. Everybody needs to be strength training. You just got to figure out a way to do it in a way that works for you. Then that brings me to my next question. So somebody asked, how do you plan your workouts? I only have time to go to the gym 4 times a week. Is that enough? So again, this goes back to asking better questions. So 4 times a week is plenty of time in the gym, but is that enough for what? Do you want to lose fat? Do you want to build muscle? Are you looking to eventually go into a powerlifting competition? Are you looking to run a 5K? These are all things we have to consider when you ask somebody, is something enough? Because what's enough for me and my goals may be too much for you, and vice versa. So first thing you have to do is really get clear on what exactly you want to achieve, right? So that leads into how I plan workouts for either myself and my clients. Right now, I'm not planning workouts for myself. I personally work with a coach because I have too many clients, rehab and training that I need to program for, and I do not want to think about what I'm doing for a workout. So yes, I do not program for myself anymore. But the way I have programmed for myself and the way I do program for my clients now includes what we just mentioned. Getting clear on your goals. So what exactly is your goal? Fat loss, muscle gain, strength? Do you want to be a better runner? That's number one, because that's going to dictate what your program actually looks like. Second thing we have to consider is, what equipment do you have access to? So some people may be training in a commercial gym. Some people may be training at home. Like I just did a home workout. I just have a squat rack, barbell, trap bar, bench, free weights. So no machines. But if you have access to machines, your exercise options are a little bit more abundant, a little bit more flexible, right? So you can include those in your program. Then you also want to think about, how many days a week can you commit to working out? And whenever I ask people this question, they're always like, I think I can work out 5 or 6 days a week, or I want to work out 5 or 6 days a week. It don't matter what you want to do. It don't matter what you think you can do. We need to talk about what we know you can do. Online, you're going to be seeing people who work out full-time for a living. They'll get paid to work out, who are saying to do 5 times a week, do glutes 3 times a week, and do upper body twice. If you don't have time to do that consistently for the next 12 weeks, don't even give that answer. Think about what you can do on your worst week. So say you have a really busy week. How many days a week can you get to the gym, and for how long? Then whatever that answer is, there's no wrong answer, but whatever that answer is, that's what you plan your workout routine based off of. And then anything else that you do in addition to that is just bonus points, right? We need to figure out what you can be consistent with, because the thing you can be consistent with is what is going to get you the results. So this person said 4 days a week, right? So depending on what your answer is, that's going to determine what type of workout routine or workout split you do. So the framework that I use for my clients is, if you're doing 2 days a week, you're going to do full body, because we want to make sure that you're hitting all muscle groups at least twice a week. If you're somebody who is saying, I want to grow my glutes, you're still doing upper body. It does not matter, because at the end of the day, when we zoom out and look at the big picture, what life is really about, being able to perform, being able to do the things that we want to do for a long period of time. We all need upper body strength, regardless of if you want to have big glutes and a small upper body or not. So you will be doing some form of upper body exercise. It may not be the most prominent thing or most dominant thing in your program, but you're going to be doing some form of upper body exercise. So full body allows you to hit your entire body, and then you just distribute the volume based on what you want in the program, based on your goals. So if you are somebody who wants to grow glutes, I keep saying glutes because that's such a hot topic. If somebody who wants to grow your glutes, you can still do that on a full body split. It's just how often or how much glute work you have is going to be a lot more than upper body, but you're not neglecting anything. If you're somebody who works out 3 days a week, you have two options. You can do 3 full body days, or you're going to do 1 upper body day, 1 lower body day, 1 full body day. That still allows you to hit all your muscle groups twice a week, but still organize your program in a way that aligns with whatever your goal is. So if you are somebody who wants more upper body strength, that's going to be a good variation for you, because on your full body day, you have some upper body. On your upper body day, obviously it's upper body. And on your lower body day, you have lower body, but you're also hitting on the full body day. So you hit your muscle groups 2 times a week. On a 4-day split, best option is to do an upper lower split. So 2 upper body days, 2 lower body days. And when it comes to these upper body days and lower body days, you do not break them up between 1 push day and 1 pull day. You're going to do push and pull for upper body 2 times a week. We are leaving doing push, pull, legs 3 days a week in the past. Like, that is not a good program for anything other than just maintaining and vibing in the gym. And if you want to have results, we cannot just be going in the gym and vibing. We need to have an actual plan that makes sense. So 2 upper body days is going to be push and pull on 1 upper body day, and then you're going to do push and pull on another upper body day. When it comes to lower body days, you don't need to worry about having a quad day and a glute and hamstring day. You just need to worry about hitting all your movement patterns for your lower body 2 times a week. That eliminates all the confusion. That makes sure that you're hitting everything you need. And for 99.9% of the population, you just need that. All right. If you are a competitive bodybuilder trying to go to the Olympia, you may need another lower body day. But for people I'm talking to, for most people, you do not need to do that. All you're doing is making your life more complicated and making things, you're adding in more complexity than necessary. So once you determine how many days you work out, then you can determine the type of split. And then based on the split, that's when you're going to decide what exercises you do. And the bulk of any program, regardless if you want to lose fat, build muscle, run a 5K, train for a high rocks, the bulk of your program is going to be based around compound movements. So compound movements are really just your big lifts, big exercises that use multiple muscle groups all at once. So squats. Squats are a compound movement because you're using your core, you're using your upper back to stabilize the bar if it's on your back, or stabilize the bar in front of you if you're doing a goblet squat. You're using your glutes, your quads, using so many things at once, so you're going to get more bang for your buck. Same thing for split stance movements, so like Bulgarians, split squats, lateral lunges, any type of lunge. Then you're going to be doing a push exercise. So when you're pushing something away from your body, think of bench press, shoulder press, or when you're pushing your body away from something, so think of a push-up. Then you're going to be doing a pull exercise. So when you pull your body towards something, pull-ups, chin-ups, or when you pull something towards your body like a row or lat pull down. and then you're going to do core and carrying exercises. If you worry about hitting these patterns, you're going to hit all of your muscle groups. You don't got to worry about doing an arm day. You don't got to worry about doing a leg day. You just train based on muscle groups and compound lifts, and you'll be fine. So once you decide to split, once you decide what compound variations you're going to do, then you start to dial in the nitty-gritty details, because a lot of people think that a workout program just comes down to exercises. So you'll see a lot of times people are like, what is this? How does this exercise routine look? And it's like, oh, I'm doing split squats, squats, hip thrust 2 times a week. That is not an exercise program. That's literally just a list of exercises. So once you select your split, once you select your exercises, then you have to finalize the program and add in your sets and reps. You have to add in your intensity and effort level. So how close to failure you're looking to train. Then you have to look at your weekly volume. So how many sets you're getting for each muscle group. Volume is a big thing for muscle growth. A lot of people are saying they want to grow their quads or grow their glutes, but they're only looking at the exercises they're doing. If you're not looking at how many sets you're getting each week, it's likely you're not going to see the growth you want, because muscle growth is determined by how often and how many sets you get for that muscle group that are close to failure. So typically anywhere from 10 to 30 sets. Notice that is a big range. 10 to 30 sets is perfect, because 10 is more so for beginners. So let's say you're new to training, you want to be hitting whatever muscle group you're looking to grow with at least 10 sets close to failure per week. And the more muscle you grow, the more sets you're going to need. So the more volume you're going to need to continue to grow muscle. But that range is there for a reason. It's widely researched. There's tons of research on volume for muscle growth. So that needs to be in your program. And then you need to also consider progressive overload. When we talk about progressive overload, we're not just talking about adding weight. As a beginner, you will notice that you can add weight to the bar pretty much every week or every 2 weeks. You may start squatting with the bar, and then the next week you're squatting with 10 pounds on the bar. Then the next week you're squatting with 15 pounds on the bar. That does not last forever. If it did, everybody will be lifting 500 pounds on every single thing by the time they die. But obviously, that's not the case. Most people never get to that. It's not natural to get to that. But we have to figure out how to maximize your gains when that period of time of when you can just add weight to the bar ends, because it is going to end at some point. It's inevitable. And if the only way of progressive overload is to add weight, you are going to be stuck in that beginner phase. You're going to run through your newbie gains, and there ain't going to be no more gains for you. So you have to figure out what other ways you can use progressive overload. So you can add more sets, you can add more reps. Those also become less feasible, because not everybody wants to be doing 5 sets of an exercise. You don't need to. You just need to know how to manipulate progressive overload. And everybody damn sure doesn't want to be doing 20 plus reps of an exercise. It doesn't make sense to do 20 plus reps of a barbell squat just because you were able to do 10 reps and it got easy, 15 reps, it got easy, 20 reps. Like, that's not a way to train. So if you would like to learn how to use this exact framework in terms of building an entire program beyond just, oh, I work out twice a week, I do these exercises, then grab the Lifter's Blueprint. It's definitely going to be in the comments as soon as this is done. You can also comment Blueprint and I'll send you the link. It's $27. It has all of this inside, and it'll show you how to build your plan beyond just your split and exercises. All right. Damn, this live is longer than I thought. So we have 2 more questions that were asked. Somebody said, is it possible to grow your butt without lifting super heavy? So it's absolutely possible to grow any muscle without lifting super heavy. And the key thing here is heavy is relative to everybody. What's heavy to me may not be heavy to you. What's heavy to your gym partner may not be heavy to you. So instead of thinking about the weight or the number you lift, we really have to think about all the other training variables that play a role in whether or not a muscle grows. Because people tend to think you have to lift heavy to be muscular. If you look at a bodybuilder versus a power lifter, that shows you, that's proof that just because you lift heavy does not mean you're going to be that muscular. Yes, power lifters have a lot of muscle, but they're more so geared to maximal strength. Bodybuilders have a lot of muscle because of the way they train is a little bit different than power lifters. So You don't have to think about lifting the heaviest in the gym. You really have to think about intensity in terms of how close to failure you are. Yes, you are going to be lifting a moderately heavy weight, especially when it comes to glutes, just because your glutes and your legs are big muscles. Like your legs and your glutes support your entire body weight every day, going up and down stairs, getting out of chairs. So, with that being said, because they are big muscle groups, they're going to be able to tolerate a lot more weight than your upper body. So, naturally, you are going to be lifting heavier weight, but it doesn't have to be super heavy. You don't have to lift a weight that you can only lift for 2 or 3 reps in order to build muscle. So beyond just the weight, we got to think about how close to failure you are. So a thing that I like to use in my training with my clients is reps in reserve. So thinking about how many more reps could you have done if you had to continue that set. So let's say you're doing hip thrusts for 10 reps. By rep 10, you should feel like you can only do 1, 2, or maybe 3 more reps if you absolutely had to. If you could keep going way past that, if you get to 10 and you feel like you could have did 20, that weight is not heavy enough. It's not doing what it needs to do, and you need to increase it if your goal is to build muscle. So instead of thinking about how heavy something is, think about how close to failure you are for that rep range. And typically for most exercises that you're going to do for lower body, your compounds, you're going to be within the 6 to 12 rep range. That is a perfect sweet spot. You want to end each set feeling like you can only do 1, 2, or 3 at most more exercises for your working sets. That's not warm-up sets. Yes, you can warm up with lighter weight, obviously, to get your body primed for that. But working sets that count towards your volume, meaningful sets that count towards muscle growth, need to be close to failure. So 1 to 3 reps shy of failure is perfect. It's the sweet spot. And that's pretty much where muscle gains live. Then we have to think about volume. If you want to grow any muscle, not just your glutes, you got to think about how many sets you're getting close to failure per week. I mentioned earlier, you want to do anywhere from 10 to 30 sets. If you're a beginner, you're going to start with 10. If you're intermediate, you're going to be around that 15 to 20 rep range. And you'll notice that as you add more volume, you're seeing more growth, especially if your nutrition is dialed in. Speaking of nutrition, if you're not fueling your body for growth, you're not going to see the gains you want. When you think about what needs to happen from a nutritional aspect, you cannot be in a deficit and expect to build a lot of muscle. What people tend to confuse is they're like, I'm in a deficit, and I'm starting to see my muscle. When you're in a deficit, you may see your muscle, but that does not mean you're putting on muscle. That does not mean you're building muscle. That just means that you're losing fat because you're in a deficit, and that's making your muscle more visible. If you're somebody who wants to put on more muscle mass, you need to fuel for that. And what that looks like is either eating at maintenance, especially if you've been in a deficit for a while. Eating at maintenance is going to allow you to put on muscle. And then either if you've been eating at maintenance and you want to take it up a notch, eating in a slight surplus. And the reason why that's so important is because in order to train with the intensity and the volume that we're talking about, you need to have energy. If you're in a deficit, and I know a lot of you can relate to this, if you're in a deficit and you're not eating a lot, you feel sluggish, you feel tired, you might feel hangry. You're not going to be able to perform the way you need to in order to put on muscle. So this is why the nutritional aspect is so important. There's so many people that are sitting in a deficit for a long period of time, and they're wondering why their workouts suck, why they feel like shit, and why their muscles aren't growing. It's because you're not fueling. You cannot drive your car on an empty gas tank. That's the same thing you're asking your body to do when you go to the gym under fueled and expecting to perform in a way that is conducive to building muscle. We cannot do that. So when it comes to muscle growth, it's not just about lifting the heaviest in the gym, especially for glutes. It's more so about lifting a weight that's challenging for you in the rep range that you're training in, making sure you're close to failure, getting enough volume in, and then also the nutrition. So if you want help putting together all of that, you can message me for one-on-one coaching and programming, or you can do it on your own with the Lifter's Blueprint. All of that is shown to you there. But these are the things you have to consider beyond just exercises and weight. People have a very narrow view of training, and in order to get the results that they want. They need to expand how they view training, how they view their routine, and the intention that they put behind designing these things, so that when you go to the gym, you're actually doing things that are meaningful for the goals that you say you want. Now, if you're somebody who, you just want to go to the gym, sweat a little bit, take a workout class, this doesn't apply to you. This is for the people who actually want to see changes in their physique. They want to see changes in their lifts. They want to take their lifts from 200 to 250. They want to be maxing out hip thrusts and squats and RDLs. This type of stuff is for you. If that's not for you, that's fine. You could be here, but don't comment no stupid shit like, oh, exercises for everybody. That's not what we're talking about here. All right. Just had to say that because I get a lot of comments like that here and there. Last question is, I have a slight ACL tear that doesn't require surgery. That's a good thing. And they want to know any exercises you recommend for leg days that are not too stressful on my knees. So this is a situation where I cannot make recommendations for specific exercises that you need to do, because the reality is all ACL tears are going to present differently, and there's not one blanket set of exercises that everyone should do just because they have ACL tear. Key thing here is you have a slight ACL tear, meaning it's not fully ruptured, it's not fully torn, and likely your knee is not very unstable. That's going to be a lot different than somebody who has fully torn their ACL and requires surgical intervention. So when it comes to ACL tears, you really want to consider the following things. So how stable is your knee? If you don't have a full tear, your knee probably is stable. If you have been training for a while, if you have built up a lot of muscle mass over the years, your body can get away with not having an ACL fully intact. So this is why it's really important to build muscle and get strong, because in instances like this, you can make a recovery without needing surgical intervention. So if your knee is stable, you're not having instances of your knee buckling, your knee giving way, that's a good thing. Are you able to walk normally? That's something that we have to consider. And are you able to engage your quad? After any knee injury, especially ACL, your ability to engage your quad tanks. Your quad kind of shuts down. There may be swelling, there may be pain, and that's going to limit your ability to use that muscle. So we have to check off those boxes first before we even talk about any type of exercises in the gym. And then from there, you're going to treat this like you would any other knee injury or any other intro to exercise. You want to figure out what lower body movements you can tolerate right now. You don't want to have a lot of pain. You don't want to do things that are increasing your swelling. So you're going to go through a movement assessment of squats, hinges, single leg balance, split stance movement, so all your lunge variations. You're going to look at your hamstring, quad, and glute strength in isolation. And then from there, whatever you can tolerate, that's what you're going to build your program based on. So notice these are very vague things, not because I'm trying to be vague, just because everybody's going to fall differently depending on their pain levels, depending on how their body is responding to the injury in terms of muscle activation and swelling. And it's not something that I can say, hey, go and do these 5 exercises. That's why injuries are so complex. And that's why it's so important to have somebody who is well-versed in these things assess you and then put together a plan based on what you can handle, because I can tell you go and do step downs and step ups and it may hurt your knee. So I can't make those recommendations, but I can help you if we go through an assessment and put together a plan. So if that's something you're interested in doing, just comment consultation or DM me directly with what's going on, and we can talk about what it looks like to work together to help this. And with that being said, that's going to be it today for lifting keys with Key. I did not expect this to be almost 35 minutes long. Again, like I said in the beginning, if you want your question answered on a future live, make sure to submit it by email. Make the subject FAQ or question, and I'll be able to tag it. And it's going to be sent to Keoni at keepitfit.com. So KEYONNI at KEYPITFIT.com. I spelled it right. And I'll be able to plug your question here and answer it. Also, be sure to give a lot of detail, because the more detail you give in your question, the better I can help you. The best questions get the best answers. If you give a poor question, expect to give a poor answer, or your question may not even be answered at all. So keep that in mind. And if you want to work together, whether that's through a rehab focused training program, if you want to do one-on-one consultation, if you want to get help with your fitness and physique goals, just send me a DM letting me know what you need help with, and I'll send you the next steps on how to work together. And I'll catch you guys later on the next round of questions on lifting keys with Key. Peace.